So first of all, congratulations on being the opening feature for SharkFest this year. Sharks Up Close with Bertie Gregory premiered with SharkFest. How proud are you that you were chosen as the opening night uh, feature?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, SharkFest is such a sort of blockbuster weekend, I think, in wildlife lovers' schedules. And yeah, it's just a cool thing to be part of. And yeah, very proud of what we did searching for great white sharks.
Mhm. Sharks are very misunderstood creatures. Yes, they're predators, but through SharkFest, we've learned so much that have dispelled much of the myths. What made this feature different?
Well, I think, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jaws this year, 50 years on from that iconic movie that, really put sharks and great white sharks on the map. Certainly scared a lot of people about going in the water. And so 50 years on, we sort of wanted to check in with great whites, see how they were doing. And yeah, what we found was that, we've spent a lot of time worrying about great white sharks when really we should be worried for them.
Definitely. Through Sharks Up Close, what kind of information were you hoping to get across to people so they aren't as afraid of the great white sharks?
Yeah, I think the key thing we were trying to show is that sharks are not these sort of mindless killers that they're often portrayed as. They're super smart and their hunting is very calculated. And they don't want to get hurt when they're hunting. They don't just attack everything that moves. They're really targeted. And once you understand that, then you can start to figure out, okay, why is it that shark attacks happen? They're incredibly rare, but why do they happen? And if you actually look, pretty much every single shark attack, when a great white shark bites someone, they don't eat them. They
Hmm.
let go of them and then they swim off. And unfortunately, the people often die because the bite is so severe. They're a very well armed predator. And what that tells us is that these attacks are a case of mistaken identity.
Hmm.
We are not like a seal. We're not really calorie rich. And so, when the shark hits us, they go in hard and fast because, they can't get injured. If they're hunting a seal, seal's got a really nasty dog-like bite. And so, yeah, they go in hard and fast to make sure they immobilize their prey. And when they hit a human, they then go, well, hang on a second, this isn't what I thought it was. They let go and they swim off. If the shark were to hit us and then eat the people, then it would be like, okay, well, they are actually targeting. That would be evidence that they're targeting humans as prey. So, with that information in mind, then you can, what we found was you can really start to mitigate these incidents. Make sure that we are creating situations that don't give sharks the opportunity to make a mistake. So, if there's a shark in the area, get great white shark in the area, get people out of the water, encourage people not to swim at dawn and dusk when the visibility is bad, and the again, it's just reducing the chances of a shark making a mistake. And the real lesson we learned was if you want to look after people and sharks, stop trying to manage the shark's
Hmm.
behavior, manage people's behavior.
Definitely. You have several different projects on streaming platforms. Uh, you deal with penguins and other animals. What was it about sharks that captured your attention, diverting from all the rest of the stuff that you cover?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved sharks. I think what's fascinating about great whites in particular is that never mind being the most famous and the most feared shark, they're probably the most famous and the most feared animal, period. So, I thought, it's about time we try to film them. And yeah, they're just such beautiful animals, so powerful and really kind of icons of the ocean and wild places. And that's what makes me tick.
What has made you so comfortable with sharks that you take on producing something in a much different way, without cages, without uh, a lot of the safety nets that a lot of other projects put out?
Well, I think it's a matter of understanding, right? We're scared of things that we don't understand. And so, surround myself with a really amazing team. And the whole like no cage thing, some people have reported that as like, oh, I'm just this kind of adrenaline junkie or whatever. And that's not true. I mean, our approach is actually spectacularly boring. Everything we do is so calculated and risk averse. I mean, you can imagine trying to, get a shark dive past the Disney insurance team.
Mhm.
Uh, it's super calculated, and I think that's really the key. Um, and yeah, it's about understanding. And the reason that we didn't want to use a cage was not because of some stunt. It's because sharks don't want to swim near a big metal box. You need to use an attractant. You need to bait them into that situation. So putting blood and guts in the water and it attracts them in. And as soon as you do that, you're not filming natural behavior. So I really wanted to film sharks, great whites behaving naturally, hunting seals, and yeah, you can't use a cage to do that.
Uh, with that being said, each shark has its own personality. Can you reproduce the way you interact with sharks with the way sharks interact with anybody else the sea?
Yeah, I mean, sharks are very aware of us and our body language and the way we're looking and the way that we're behaving. I wouldn't sort of claim for 1 second that the sharks kind of know me or anything. I've heard some people saying that, and I think maybe if you dived in the same spot over and over again, then a shark might be able to recognize you and. Um, but yeah, I think it's a question of understanding and body language, and me interpreting the shark's body language and the shark interpreting mine. So yeah, it's a cool thing to try and kind of figure out. You start to figure out various animal behaviors, almost subconsciously. It's not like a thing that I'm actively thinking about. It sort of is happening. You get a feeling that the shark is relaxed or aggressive or whatever. It's a bit like, when you walk into a bar and you're trying to figure out where to sit. Like you're scanning the room and looking at human body language. You're not going, oh, that person's angry, that person's sad, that person's happy. Like all of that processing is done subconsciously, and then you're like, I'm gonna go sit there. That's a good place to sit. That's what you have to do when you film wild animals is you learn to understand their behavioral cues, and you're doing that subconsciously to then make good decisions to keep yourself safe and ultimately keep the animals safe too.
How important is it for you to find the perfect location? I'm sure you've gone to several locations in order to find the right place to film, the right place to feel safe, and the right community, not just for you, but for the shark.
Yeah, so a really important part of trying to film these great whites, the reason we went to Plettenberg Bay in South Africa was because the topography of the bay is pretty unique. It's a very shallow, sandy bottom, and great whites traditionally, they're known for ambushing their prey from the deep against the surface. And so, because the bottom is sandy and it's shallow, it means that the sharks are very visible. It's really hard for them to sneak up on their seal prey. And so, usually the environment is in to the shark's advantage, whereas here in this bay, it's kind of to the seal's advantage. It also meant that, it meant, sharks weren't going to be able to sneak up on us from underneath us. And we could locate them with the drone and be really efficient with how we found them and followed them. And so really that was key to allowing us to film them hunting the sharks safely. And also you mentioned the community. What I love about that community there, and it's part of the reason we went there was they have had great white shark fatalities in the past. And a lot of communities when they human wildlife conflict happens, the knee-jerk reaction, the response is to kill that predator. But in this place, they said no. This is the shark's home. We share it with them. So how do we live alongside them? How do we coexist with them? So that's why the shark spotters was set up. This network of amazing people who stand up on cliffs and on hotel roofs spotting the sharks. And when they see a great white near to the surfers or the swimmers, they let off a horn, put up a flag, get the bathers out of the water, and keep the two separate, keep both of them safe.
That's awesome. Given the opportunity, is there any other species of sharks you would like to go out and document?
Oh yeah, the list is endless. I mean, there's so many species of shark. I mean, just in where we were filming, there's over 100 species of shark. And I think in the episode we filmed 3 or 4 species. So yeah, there's a lot we got left to tick off. But yeah, I'm a bit obsessed with the Greenland shark. they can live an extraordinary length of time. You know, there was one shark they reckon was over 400 years old, which is absolutely bonkers. You know, it was around long before, you know, the formation of various countries, and yeah, it's pretty wild to think that, yeah, they've just been swimming around. So that would be near the top of my list for sure.
That is awesome. And you talked about Jaws being at its 50th anniversary. Did Jaws ever affect you, and how did you take that movie, and how do you continue to view that movie?
I mean, it's an incredible film, right? Never mind that it's about sharks. Just in terms of a storytelling masterclass,
Mhm.
so kind of ahead of its time, and it was kind of the first big blockbuster, first big summer movie. So yeah, it did a lot of good. It certainly got a lot of people talking about sharks. There was, of course, the negative repercussions. You know, I think it scared a lot of people about sharks and allowed people to justify a lot of killing, which is obviously not a good thing. But you know, it was a different time, and the world has moved on. I think what well, I say the world's moved on. It's still an amazing film, but in terms of our perception of sharks, that said, I am frustrated that there's still television companies and Hollywood movies being made where they just, you know, demonize sharks and portray them in such an unrealistic light, or you know, perpetuate this sort of man versus nature ego warrior thing. And it's like, come on, we've moved on from that. You don't need, we don't need that. Sharks don't need that. Let's yeah, let's celebrate them and get everyone on side.
Definitely. Well, congratulations on Sharks Up Close, and I hope you get to do your dream Greenland shark project, because it sounds like you have a lot of knowledge about that shark.
Thanks very much. Looking
Awesome.
forward to it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.